The information provided on Terminal Addiction Podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional medical or mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, licensed therapist, or other qualified provider with any questions you might have regarding medical or mental health condition. Never disregard professional advice or delay seeking it because of something you heard on this podcast. The views and opinions expressed by the guests, the hosts, are their own, and they do not necessarily reflect those of any affiliated organization or institutions. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, we make no guarantee regarding the completeness, reliability, or applicability of the content discussed. Listen to this podcast does not establish provider-patient relationship. If you're experiencing a medical emergency or mental health crisis, please contact emergency services or crisis line immediately.
Welcome back to another edition of Terminal Addiction. My name is Doug H.
And I'm Paul B.
And we are glad to be back with you guys. This is, I think, our third or fourth episode. I think Paul snuck an extra one in when I wasn't looking, interviewing a really nice lady that he's known for a while. But I think today we're going to talk to you guys about some relapse prevention strategies.
Hey, Doug, before we get started, can you hit the first button, second row, first button?
Let's see how this goes.
Welcome back to Upper Doghouse Studios and Terminal Addiction with Doug and Paul.
I really thought we needed some theme music. So
I appreciate that, Paul. That guy sounded a little bit like somebody I know. So we are talking today more about relapse prevention strategies. I think we're trying to look at things from maybe a different point of view. We're assuming most, if not all of our listeners, or at least, into their first 6 months, maybe a year and a half of sobriety, of recovery. And we just want to give you guys some ideas of things that we've done and ways to enhance your sobriety and not go backwards.
Yeah, I think one of the first things is identifying those triggers. And triggers really can come out of nowhere. I remember I was on my very first vacation, going into a hotel for the first time sober. And I opened up the suitcase, and the first thing I saw was a bottle of vodka that was sitting in my suitcase that really wasn't there. And I did what I was supposed to do. I called Doug right away, to the dismay of my wife. But I've had triggers for all kinds of things. I remember I was still in treatment, and one day I heard a martini shaker behind me. And I went to my counselor right afterwards, and she said, "What the hell were you doing someplace that had a martini shaker?" So, we're going to talk a little bit about triggers and relapse prevention. Some of the coping skills that we have. So, Doug, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different, types of triggers. And I think the best thing to do in most cases is to avoid them whenever possible. But just like everything else, if we're getting clean and sober and we want to get back out there and live life, we got to be around things. And again, I wouldn't encourage anybody to go anywhere that's serving alcohol or a drug-friendly environment, especially early on. Make sure you're working through your program, making sure that you're the best version of yourself before you enter any of those risky situations. But you go into any of these places, and I think a game plan is always good. I think I like to either go to a meeting or talk to somebody before I go into one of these, potentially risky situations. If I can go with somebody, I think that's even better. That way I've got like accountability buddy right there. My friend Kaylee calls it her battle buddy. And I just think it's really a safeguard that I'm okay with putting on myself today. But more often than not, triggers can kind of come out of nowhere. The best laid plans still have holes in them. And I can do a lot of things to safeguard myself against the triggers that maybe I know about. Maybe it's people, maybe it's places, maybe it's environments, maybe it's music or TV shows or things like that. So there are some things that I do have control over, but then there is just always that percentage that you just can't plan for. And I think that's what maybe catches some people up, especially in their first, go round on recovery.
Yeah, and I think one of the keys to this is finding what happened last time. I relapsed a couple times, and looking at my patterns, there were definite patterns out there that I knew what to stay away from, what I was safe with. But the other part of it, I talked about earlier. I called Doug right away, having that support network that can help you out in those tough times.
Yeah, I think having those those people in your corner, whether it's a sponsor, a sober support person, or just somebody that you've told that you're going into these situations, and they're there to maybe answer the phone and help you out a little bit. And I remember you calling me that day. I don't remember where you were traveling to, but I remember getting that call, and we just sort of worked through it. I think Chris was with you, but it was still just a unexpected surprise. You didn't pack any vodka. But I think when you got there, it was just kind of the muscle memory kicked in, and you just remembered what it was like being in those hotel rooms all those times.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk a lot about the toolbox and what tools do you have in your toolbox. Uh, I had the meetings. I had the support network of people. I had the steps that I'd gone through and all those things. Um, but being able to use those tools to help me stay sober throughout some of those tough times, especially early on. We talked in the first episode about how tough it is during that first year. You get to those milestones. You get to that 3 month period, the 6 month period, a year, and that's when a lot of people read.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, it's it. I know for me, first go round, second go round on this, I didn't change much. I just stopped drinking and using. I didn't really get into working any sort of a recovery program. I maybe had a sponsor by name, but I wasn't working any sort of recovery program. But I still wanted to go back and hang out with the same people in the same places, doing the same things we were doing before. I was just trying not to drink and use in drinking and using environments. And that was really hard for me. So I think the biggest thing I did was change and put a new group of people around me. And I think, Paul and I getting sober together in the early days of COVID in 2020, we were kind of thrust into this really cool environment where we had some great people with some good long-term healthy sobriety that were in our corner, that were there for us, that we got to see almost every day at an in-person meeting, that kind of started during COVID. So I think we were kind of adopted into this really great recovery family. Some people with 20, 30, 40 years sober who could help us and show us what to do. And more than anything, it was just, you don't stop doing what's working just because it's working.
I was talking to somebody who had recently gone into recovery after a relapse, and she and I talked for a while. And one of the things she said was kind of profound for me. It was, I learned something from that relapse, and she didn't see it as a failure. She saw it as just a learning opportunity. And I think it's real important that we see those challenges as learning opportunities. You're not going back to that first time you got sober. You're coming in with some experience, and you have some extra tools in your toolbox.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And like I said, my recovery journey has been going on for 25 plus years. I was first, introduced to meetings when I was like 16. I first really gave sobriety a chance when I was 21. I got sober a couple of times in my 20s. And this most recent time at like 36, I think, is when I went back and got it. So I do feel that every meeting I've ever gone to, every conversation I've had, every lead that I've heard, every person in recovery that's crossed my path, I've had the opportunity to learn from them. But I've also learned, from my own personal slips and falls and relapses. And excuse me, I'm the kind of person that needs to go out and do it the hard way. That's the only way I learn, is the hard way. So I feel like for me it was important, at that time, if I could go back and wave a magic wand and change it, yeah, maybe I would, but I don't think I'd come away with the learning experiences that I have now, that I really think have allowed me to go and live a happy, joyous, free, like they talk about, life in recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. I walk away with a little bit of humility from the times that I did relapse. Um, just knowing that no, I'm not perfect. It's never a program about perfection. It's about progress. It's trying to get better. It's trying to become a better human all around, and it's not just one thing or another. It's that whole big picture.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And just every year of my sobriety this go round has sort of had a theme. I think we just kind of talked about it earlier. The first year is just hang on tight. Just don't fall off. Just go to meetings. Get through whatever you have to get through. And then I think I kind of expected to get to like day 366, and for this chorus of angels to come in, and for everything to be fixed, and it wasn't. And I think with that experience that I had going through, previous bouts in recovery of sobriety, I realized that I just kind of had to keep working. The not drinking and the not using is a wonderful foundation, but that's not it. For me, that is the foundation that I can build whatever life I want on top of. If I'm not sober, if I'm not clean, if I'm out doing what I was doing, anything that I want to do is pretty limited. But once I established myself in my sobriety plan, and had a good group of people around me, and worked through my steps, and was doing the things that I needed to do, it was like, okay, now what's next? Because I think for a lot of people, they get to that 3 month, 6 month, 9 month, year mark, maybe even 2 years, and they just kind of look around and go, well, "Was this it?" And if you let it be it that's it. But I think for me, and I think you've done this as well, we almost challenge ourselves to go do something, whether it's change career fields, or go get a new certification or license, or go back to school in my case. And in this whole sobriety journey, I quit smoking cigarettes, and that was something that I've been struggling with for decades as well. And about 2.5 years ago, I just sort of made that commitment. But I used, the same recovery tools that I had, especially when you're dealing with triggers and cravings, trying to quit smoking cigarettes. That was hell on earth. Um, but I think it's always looking towards what's next. I'm never satisfied with good enough, and good is the enemy of great. I can't remember where I heard that, but I always wanted to do more, and so every year of my sobriety has felt like I'm building on top of what I've already built.
Oh, absolutely. One of the things I was just thinking about when I was still in treatment, um, we drew up a relapse prevention plan, and matter of fact, Doug's name's on it, but it also had my sponsor's name on it. It had a bunch of other people's names on it. It's still attached to. It's still stuck to my refrigerator. 5 years later. And every once in a while, I look at it and go, "Oh yeah, some of the names have changed, but other than that, yeah, still sticking to the same plan." And um, it was really important early on to have that written plan to how was I going to keep from relapsing. And it had my triggers on there. It had all the things that might lead me back to relapse right on that piece of paper. And so to this day, it's still sitting on my refrigerator. So yeah.
Yeah, I work with a group of patients, that are fresh out of treatment, and so I keep copies of their recovery plans, but I also keep a copy of mine because I need to be reminded. I feel like I've been in aftercare for probably the last 5 years now, um, but it is super rewarding because I get to work with people, and in a professional but also personal way. I get to be reminded of where I came from and where I was. So yeah, I keep my recovery plan. I know exactly where it is, and I'm pretty sure your name is on there too, Paul, if coincidentally enough. But yeah, I still go to some different meetings. I still have the same sponsor. My first sponsor, Goody, passed away. But I've got Bruce, and he's wonderful. I've had to change up my meetings because I live here in town, where I got clean and sober. And as much as I love going to the meetings around here and seeing all the friendly faces, I had to put some space in between my job and my recovery. So I go to meetings about a half hour, 45 minutes away most of the time. If somebody's doing a lead here in town, or if somebody invites me, or if it's an anniversary, I'll stop in and I'll go. Um, but I really did have to, keep my professional sobriety and my personal sobriety, as separate as I could. But yeah, that recovery plan was huge. And one thing that my counselor told me, and I tell the patients, is if you follow your recovery plan, you have 100% success rate, because the first thing that I have everybody put on their recovery plan is don't drink and use. And so if you don't drink and use, you can't get drunk or high. I don't know if anybody's figured that one out yet, but yeah. And then after that, it's going to meetings, it's praying and meditating, it's doing some service work, it's getting involved, it's building that sober support network, and it's building friendships and relationships, because the whole foundation of this whole sobriety recovery thing is relationships. And I think we're going to talk about that in one of our upcoming episodes as well. But my recovery plan had me, not isolating. And I think for a lot of people, that's a big trigger, is they wake up, go to work, come home, eat dinner, go to a meeting, come home, go to bed, wake up, go to work. And I think it's just very mundane and very repetitive, very Groundhog Day. And that's okay. Because I got to remember how chaotic my life was before, and how, where did I hear this? Boredom is underappreciated serenity. And I really like that line, because, how often, when I was living in that chaos and that noise and that hecticness, would I have given anything for a little bit of boredom? And now I can't even, find 5 minutes to pray and meditate when I have some free time. So I think for me, it was just, being able to surround myself with people when necessary, but also knowing when to go recharge my batteries, but also sticking to that promise that I made to myself when I was in the depths of my addiction. And I said I would do anything to get out of here. And I think I've pretty much stuck to that as best I could.
One of the things that I was just thinking about was I didn't travel for several years after treatment. And the reason was I spent 8 years on the road, and that was a big trigger for me. And so when we took our first cruise, I realized there was an AA meeting on the cruise ship, and I met 25 of the most wonderful people, and many of them I still maintain contact with today. They were all in AA. They came on the cruise together. I was kind of the outsider, but I was welcome as part of the fellowship, and I felt very at home with these people. We had dinner together. We would see each other on the cruise ship. I'd be up at 4:35 in the morning, walking the decks, and I'd see them out there, and we'd sit down and have a cup of coffee together. And since that time, I've taken a couple more cruises, and it's been the same thing. I'm getting ready to leave for Alaska on Thursday, and I know that at 9 a.m. every day, there's going to be an AA meeting on the ship, and I'm looking forward to the people that I meet and the fellowship there. I told Doug earlier I may do a live episode or a recorded episode from Alaska, and it just depends on how things go, and but I'll hear some stories that I've never heard before. It's going to be a fresh new group of people that I've never met before, but the fellowship is so strong. When you meet one person that's sober, that has the gratitude, you find out that you guys have so much in common that you can just talk for hours without feeling awkward about it.
Yeah, and one other thing, and I think Paul and I are really trying to be encouraging here. I think Paul and I both come from more of an AA background, but I've got experience in NA and Celebrate Recovery and Smart Recovery. So whenever I encounter anybody who's on their own recovery journey, even if we're from different fellowships, I feel like it's still, like different branches of the military. Like we're all just doing this. We're all just trying to get sober. We're all trying to find our path in life. And I think just being able to connect with somebody, and I know, here I go. I'm about to be a big book thumper, Paul. Page 568, right at the end of the spiritual experience, part 567, 568. It talks about contempt prior to investigation. And so if I'm having a hard time, because I'm being judgmental instead of curious, I think that's when I run into roadblocks. So, I'm happy to sit and talk and listen to anybody who's on their recovery journey. I love, talking to musicians and artists and other people who have, had some struggles and are out there, doing their thing and living their lives and being creative. And I think that's one of the things that Paul and I also want to try to do on this podcast is to bring in some alternative perspectives, some people that may have really had some struggles and gotten their selves together, gotten into sobriety. And I want to know how they're doing it. I want to know how they're, out there in the clubs playing music. I want to know how they're, I even know some sober bartenders. And I'm curious as to how people do that. I don't get upset. I don't get jealous. I don't try to get judgmental. I try to be curious. And so that's that, trying not to be contemptful before investigating. So yeah, I'm excited for your cruise. You've always had really good luck when you've gone on these things. And if anybody's not aware of this, if you're on cruise ships, they will have a sign that says Friends of Bill W, and that's how you know when and where the meetings are. I've also heard that if you are in an airport and you are struggling, if you go up to any of the ticket agents and just let them know that you are a friend of Bill W, they will announce it over the PA at the airport. And I promise you, one or two fellows will come to your assistance if you're struggling at an airport. Because I know that was one of your big triggers, Paul, was being in airports.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure that you almost have your ears kind of tuned into that if you're in the airports. If somebody's struggling, I want to make sure that I'm there for them. And again, it doesn't matter if they're from the same fellowship that I'm from, or if they've got the same spiritual or beliefs. They're somebody that's in recovery, and I want to make sure I'm there for them. So just trying to be in tune with all these different things I think is really important, because I was so out of tune, I was so out of touch when I was drinking and using that I feel like I'm almost like hyper aware to stay in the moment these days.
I kind of want to wrap up this episode with kind of a funny story. Of course, the cruise ship that we're on has its own Facebook page, and somebody posted on there, "Hey, who's this Bill W guy? He must be really famous because every ship that I go on, every cruise that I go on, there's always a blocked off room where they have parties for this guy, Bill W. It seems like they have it every day." And of course, several people in the fellowship had commented, they'll be on every cruise ship that you go on. So, this has been a great journey, and we look forward to having next episode and the next episode after that. Feel free to get on the website, get on social media, send us an email, give us a call, and tell us what you like, what we can improve on, and any ideas that you have for topics.
Yeah, we really want to hear from you guys. That's a big part of this. Paul and I can sit here and talk to each other for hours on end, but we want to hear from people out there in their own recovery journeys. And so, like Paul said, get on there, send us an email, drop us a line, and we'd love to hear from you guys. So, I think that's about it for now, Paul.
Yeah, until next time.
What button do I push?
One that says stop. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of any affiliated organization. This content is for informational purposes only and is not intended for professional advice. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. Until next time.